My boyfriend cheated, now he wants me to get an abortion. My F25 boyfriend, M25, cheated and now he wants me to get an abortion. For a while I have felt like things between him and I were a little off. We had not been hanging out as much, and when we did he'd claim he was tired, so we'd just stay home and nap or sleep. He wasn't taking me out in public as much. I tried to talk to him about how I was feeling, but he just reassured me everything was fine and that he loves me. Last weekend we finally decided to go out for my brother's birthday, but he was on his phone a lot. I tried to ignore it, but the feeling in my gut was telling me check his phone. Usually I'm not the type to check phones because I want to trust my partner, but I just couldn't get this bad feeling to go away. Well, after the event on the way home I asked if I could use his phone to call my brother, stating I forgot to ask him something and that I wasn't getting good service on my phone. He hands his phone over and I immediately start shaking. He's big on Snapchat, so I immediately open the app. He has 2 female profiles as his best friends. I open them and he's been talking and flirting with both of them. My gut was right and I immediately felt sick. He noticed what I was doing and snatched the phone away. When we got to his house he threw a fit and harsh words were exchanged between the both of us. He yelled that I should get an abortion because he can't be with me and I should have known. I'm assuming he meant should have known that he was cheating. He refused to clarify what he meant. The next morning when things had calmed down I asked if he was serious about the abortion and he told me he couldn't have kids with me. I cannot have kids with you, this can't happen. I'm currently only about 4/6 of a week along. I haven't even had an ultrasound yet. I'm not against abortion, I just think I could personally never have one. The weight of that would ruin me. He said I just want to ruin his life, which is untrue. I'm devastated right now. Last week he was claiming he loved me and everything was fine, and now he's acting like he hates me and is asking me to get rid of our baby. No longer need advice. Edit. I understand the financial, mental and physical changes that may happen if I decide not to terminate are tremendous. I have a few weeks to decide and I will read through comments, and from other advice I've seen I will also be requesting counseling, therapy for my decision and the emotions that follow. Thank you all again, and I'm very sorry for being harsh to some of you in the comments. This is a tough situation, but that doesn't give me the right to take my emotions out on the members of Reddit. Again, thank you, folded hands. Update. For those of you who have not seen in the comments, I will be having my first ultrasound tomorrow to check up on the growth, get an exact gestational age and due date. I've decided abortion is not something I'm going to do and will be keeping the baby. So this post can now be for anyone wanting pregnancy updates. Red heart. Financial note that was given to commenter, needed to add because many of you assume I'm a poor lowly decrepit woman struggling to find my way in the world without a big strong man by my side. Sorry, that was meant to say 100K annually. Still, that's a decent amount of money. Also, a little more detail, my home was gifted to me as a graduation present from family, so I don't pay a mortgage as it was completely paid off when given. I only pay the yearly tax on the property. I do have a car note and my credit score is high enough that it allows me to pay $375 monthly, and its total price at purchase was $32K with 0% interest rate. My car insurance is $300. I'd say on average my monthly spending on bills excluding extracurriculars is about $2,300. That's including the above mentioned plus gas, electric and water bill for my home, and then basics like car fuel, food, home Wi-Fi and phone service, and also includes a monthly payment towards student loans. Like I said, I will need to cut some of the fun things out and possibly make adjustments on other bills, maybe even sell my car for something cheaper to stock up on things for the baby, but I do feel after calculating the cost of everything my child may need that I will be able to do it financially. We won't be rich, as many of you have suggested is a necessity when it comes to being a parent, but we will do perfectly fine. And as they grow, I hope to grow in my career and continue to earn pay increases. I know people are shoving the financial aspect down my throat, but I am not a child nor oblivious. I was raised in a way that taught me how to manage my money in a responsible way. Even after monthly expenses, I'm still left over with a large sum of money that goes into my savings. I am human, so I do occasionally buy myself something nice. Cold sweat smile. My savings are looking pretty good too, and I have my whole family behind me. Not to mooch, but as a support system cheering me on. Oh, forgot to mention I work at an engineering firm in client relations mostly, but I do manage and perform tasks in other areas of the firm. Also B-Day in a few days, so changed age to 25. It's not going to work out with the boyfriend. Tomorrow, 2 weeks, 2 months, but almost certainly before any baby is born, this relationship is over. The real question is, what do you want? Do you want to have a baby even if the other parent is someone who is going to be a big thorn in your side and very likely a disappointing or fully absent co-parent? If you decide against abortion, which is the pregnant person is your choice, you have to accept that you don't get to make him be a decent parent. He won't be. You'll be on your own with pursuing adoption or single parenthood. Yeah, I've come to terms with our relationship being over, it's just not knowing what to do: abortion, adoption, being a single mother. They're all very hard decisions to make. Each one has a consequence, whether it be emotional or financial. Money comes and goes, but can I live knowing I had an abortion? Can I live with the fact that I gave my baby away? It's hard. You also have to be ready that even though he wants you to have an abortion, that doesn't necessarily mean he will give up his parental rights. You may be stuck co-parenting with this person for the next 18 years. You mean for the rest of your life? Parenting doesn't end at 18. You are attached to the other parent through your kids for the rest of your life. And birthdays, graduations, and grandkids and all of that stuff, you be connected forever. My guess is that he will not care about the kids' birthdays or co-parenting at all. He will say, "Hey, I wanted you to have an abortion, have fun being a mom. I have nothing to do with this," and then he disappears. My heart breaks for you. My boyfriend of 3.5 years was happy when we became pregnant and then wanted me to have an abortion. I was broken. I had no idea he was cheating on me with my best friend. When I refused abortion, he did his best to talk me into adoption. Well, I kept the baby with my parents' help. It was hard, but I loved her so much. I had to grow up. Make good decisions about my life. No regrets on my end. Her father was in and out of her life till she was 5 and then just stopped. He wanted to show her off when he had a new girlfriend. His parents always visited and helped a bit. When she was 4, I met my husband. He loves her like his own. Her bio dad fought my husband adopting her for 2 years and then gave up once he realized she never had his last name. Her having his last name was the only thing he wanted and forgot she had my last name. Anyway, she is an adult and a lovely person. It can work, you being a single mother. But you need to be ready to do it alone. No support from H.I.M. No child support. No visits. If you can get him to give up his rights to her right away. You need to be mother and father. You need to always put your child first. Don't try to find him a daddy. Don't bring men around unless you are serious about a future together. Good luck and hugs. That's the best advice I've heard in a long time. Greater than you need to be mother and father. You need to always put your child first. Don't try to find him a daddy. Don't bring men around unless you are serious about a future together. Then you're raising kids who have an absent pos for a father, and it's also an issue. Yup. This happened to a friend of mine. The dad was an alcoholic who promptly forgot to come and pick their kids up for weekends and holidays, and often also forgot their birthdays. And now he wonders why they don't want to see him. Or he could be a petty sack of shit over it. We've all seen that story play out, I think. I feel for you. This is a huge lifelong decision. Have you considered adoption? If you get an abortion, you may live with the regret forever. If you give up the child for adoption, you may feel the emptiness forever. If you keep the child, you may share in the joy of being a mom, but the struggle and challenges of single motherhood can create poor choices but also bring the greatest joys. I hope you seek the support of your family. He could also be a revolving door dad, coming in and out of the kid's life just to screw her. And then she would have to get lawyers for a custody agreement if she wants to try to stop it, which may not always work out in her favor. Except when Paws turns 30 and his brain finally fully develops and he comes back grunting, "I want to see my kid, it's my right, blah blah blah." Yeah, I don't have kids, happily child-free, but this happened to a friend of mine. She got married, they had 2 kids, and then he decided that alcohol is better than family. She tried for 2 years more, he was never violent, thank goodness, but finally she had enough because an alcoholic dad is not good for children. They divorced, and he was supposed to have kids on weekends, some weeks and half of the holidays. He stood his kids off so many times, forgot their birthdays, did not come to pick them off. It was heartbreaking to witness. And now, when they are grown-ups, he cannot understand why they don't want to even see him. If Op wants to keep the baby, she should go after child support. Was this pregnancy planned? Did they take appropriate precautions? They both got pregnant and knew the sex they were having could lead to this, even with precautions. So decide for yourself, but get the child support if you keep it. Until his kid is rich. And you'll spend that lifelong connection arguing about who's going to have the kid for whatever holiday. Families will stick their noses in with opinions. Ah. Or maybe not. It might end up okay. Unless he gives up his rights. If she keeps the baby and he gives his rights up, she needs to get an ironclad document that he can't change his mind on in future. Seriously. I had a random boyfriend in high school. We had a baby. Went through hell being young and immature and not right for each other but trying to raise a kid. Lots of drama and heartache and fighting, and I had to do a lot of the child raising on my own because he wasn't reliable. Now 26 years later, we were in our daughter's labor room together as she was getting ready to have her first child, our grandchild. Super weird. In my state, not sure of others, she doesn't have to put a father on the birth certificate if they aren't married. The onus would then be on him to prove paternity if he wanted to. Doesn't seem like it would be that hard to break up, tell him she got the abortion, and go no contact. If she's prepared to not receive any financial support from him and would prefer he not have a relationship with the child. Greater than you mean for the rest of your life. And after that. Haha, that's what you think. I haven't seen my ex since our son was 9. Kid's now 28. Can confirm this. My grandma had to do a lot for her adult children. Like age 50 plus. Our kid never stops being that, so not to sound dramatic, but you just are playing a huge game with life. The choice you have to make is very difficult, and life is also that. You don't want to make life any harder on an innocent being bringing someone into the world knowing their biological parent is going to cause a life of trauma. It's so early in the pregnancy, and I'm not trying to be dismissive. You should or the life, but also respect them enough to know they deserve so much more than the current situation. That's real love. I promise. You will get through this no matter what, and I pray for your safety. I wonder if it's possible to get him to write a letter, and record him, signing a document saying he relinquishes parental rights before the kid is born? I dunno, maybe that wouldn't be fair to the kid. Tough decision. Hugs. So. If he wants to be a parent to the child and not be with her, that's perfectly fine. Respectfully, you can't hand-wave the financial difficulties of single motherhood by saying, money comes and goes. You really should sit down and look at things like the cost of daycare in your area and what hours they would cover, what adding a child to your insurance would look like, whether you'd need to rent a larger and more expensive place, how much your grocery bill would increase, etc. What if your child has medical issues and requires extra money to cover those bills? What if your best employment option is outside the hours that your local daycares will cover and you'd have to hire more expensive childcare to make it happen? Make sure you'll actually be able to make it work in reality, not in an idealized version of reality. Children are incredibly expensive if you need full-time childcare, especially in certain places. Depending on how much family support you have access to, you might also need to be asking yourself, can I live knowing that I couldn't support my kid finance? Allie and they experienced consequences as a result, that could be as minor as being bullied for wearing secondhand clothes, or as severe as experiencing homelessness, but you won't be able to assess that until you've taken a really hard look at the exact costs you can reasonably expect. I'm not saying this to discourage you, but it seems like you already know that you don't want an abortion and you want it to be financially possible for you to keep the pregnancy because that's the option you leaning towards. Since you know you have that preference in decision-making, you have to make sure that you're being completely honest with yourself and making this decision knowing the consequences it'll have, not just choosing and hoping for the best even if that's unrealistic. It's not just financial, too. Having a child is just plain hard. I love my children, they are the joy of my life. I'm happily married, have family support and financial stability. My kids were planned and wanted. It was still hard. I don't think young women really know just how all-consuming parenting is, and I just can't imagine doing more than surviving in a situation such as OP's. I literally started crying last night when my baby woke up right as I was about to go to sleep, after spending 2 hours trying to get my other kid to sleep. It's been weeks of this. You are so tired. We are all so tired. Why won't you kids sleep? You can intellectually know this will be the reality, but nothing can prepare you for actually experiencing it. Truly. My kids are older now and they sleep. But it was years, literal years of broken sleep. It's very hard to keep functioning. To feel human. I was so optimistic that my baby would be a good sleeper. Well, she is now at 16. She didn't actually sleep through the night till she was 5 years old, so I guess she's been saving it up. All of this. The exhaustion. It was like nothing I had ever felt before. My son slept through the night every night until he turned about 11 months, and now it's been 3 months of broken sleep and it is rough, especially when you get put into the false sense of, OMG, my baby is the perfect sleeper, surely this will continue, but no one is that lucky. Now the challenge is getting them up lol. This is so relatable. So much this. My little one just turned 11 weeks and literally nothing could have prepared me for how hard and wonderful this is. Same with finances. Making a budget is a wonderful idea and should be done, but there are so many expenses I never would have foreseen. I'm all about women's choices and no woman should ever be forced into a decision either way. I mean this for keeping the baby, abortion, and adoption. But there is no way this 25-year-old can fully comprehend how difficult single motherhood is actually going to be. Money doesn't come and go with a kid. It just goes. I'm 10 weeks into 2 under 2 and I'm running on pure anxiety and adrenaline. I feel like I'm suffocating and on the verge of tears most of the time. I love those little buggers though, they are great. But yeah, you can never be fully prepared until you're in the thick of it and it is brutal. I also didn't expect preeclampsia with my first pregnancy and a placental abruption with my second. My first could have lost me or we could have lost our second, or both. My second experienced brain damage. Age due to lack of oxygen to the brain, there's a lot of appointments. I guess I'm saying all this because pregnancy and labor can also go a way you never prepared for mentally, physically or financially. Anyway, I'm rambling as I do when I'm super tired. Of course, I think that's arguably the hardest part. I just focused on the financial part because I think that's something that could actually get a good sense of the difficulty of beforehand, whereas the actual grind of being solely responsible for parenting a child every day is probably too difficult to grasp accurately ahead of time. Plus I'm sure it varies more from person to person than the financial aspects do. It's easy to say, I'll just be patient and love my kids so much that I won't mind the harder parts, but much more difficult to mentally get around. My necessary expenses with a kid will exceed my income by at least $500 per month. This is obviously a problem. Loving this thread as free birth control. This is a joke. I'm asexual anyway. Seriously, so much props to anyone who, properly, raises a fleshy beansprout, especially the single parents. I cannot fathom it at all. It sounds like having to dedicate your entire existence to another being, or multiple, instead of to yourself. And while most only do it for 12, I had my first child at 29, thinking I was better equipped to handle parenthood. Most humbling experience of my life, lol. It truly is insanely hard but insanely rewarding. Yeah, money comes and goes. Tell that to kids who can't go on field trips with the class because the parents don't have the money, and who can't participate in sports because their parents don't have the money, and who can't get good dental care because their parents don't have the money, and who get left behind when their friends go places because their parents don't have the money, etc. Raising 2 daughters, I thought I was going to do okay. I had a good job, a wife, a house, all that stuff. Then there was a minor recession and I got let go, and it took 6 months to find another job. Which didn't pay as much as the first one, so we went in a hole and it took 10 years to dig out, barely hanging on to the house. I still feel like absolute crap when I think about it. I had high hopes for being able to give my kids a good childhood, and it all went to crap, and nothing I tried worked. The stress of the whole thing pretty much tanked the marriage too. Now I live alone. My kids are okay. But they missed out on so much. None of that was your fault. I'm glad you and your family made it through. Forgive me for assuming you're American, but I dare say we are generally way more financially unstable here no matter how many things you do, right? I will say, as someone who genuinely should have been aborted due to the circumstances of my parents, my mom being single and unable to financially care for me on her own, it's difficult. On one hand, I know I'm lucky to be alive, but I do not have a good view of my mother. I view her actions to keep me despite all the challenges clearly showing she couldn't care for me as selfish. My life has been a hellscape with one turmoil after another. Yep. She is about to plunge herself into decades-long poverty rather breezily. This part. A hungry baby doesn't understand the concept of money coming and going. Man, I don't want to be super mean to Op, but whenever I hear people say money comes and goes, I no longer see them as intelligent. Full score, I grew up in poverty, and the main reason I had an abortion, decades ago, is because I would never ever want to put another human through that shit. I couldn't live with myself for doing that. Or they are just someone with money. Grimace, yeah, hard to say that when you put everything into a spreadsheet. I would also argue it's objectively a bad decision for the stability of all involved to go forward with the pregnancy. Op, please read this. Seriously. Yep. Op doesn't want financial help, but it's extremely hard to raise a child alone in this economy. This is excellent, rational advice. All of these things can be written and discovered so that you make a rational decision. You can't predict the future, but you can find out the situation now. Great and practical advice. The people who need this advice the most are that way because they're the last ones to consider it. Hard agree. Life experience and wisdom will show anyone that money problems are the most common, life-hindering concern raising children. Children raised by struggling parents are less likely to succeed, much less have a great childhood. Op needs to stop thinking about herself and do what really makes you a parent. Think about the life of the kid, with one parent, likely financially struggling. While mommy works full-time and dates, from the kid's perspective, strange men. Not healthy. Don't do that to the kid. Don't be selfish. Don't forget that having an abortion now can mean that you are setting yourself up for success later when you're actually ready to have a child. Think of your future family. Imagine planning on a child, with someone you love who supports you, with someone who wants a child. Don't sacrifice that child's future. My mom feels guilt about the abortion she had after me. She couldn't see making it work with us so close in age. I'm so happy she got it, because my little brother who came after has been my lifelong best friend. I wouldn't trade him for anything. My mom had an abortion many years before I was born, and she always says she has no regrets because she wasn't ready to be a mom and the sperm donor had no interest in being a dad, and she wouldn't have me if she hadn't chosen to end a pregnancy that wasn't the right thing for her. Emo abortion is better than giving up for adoption. There's no guarantee the child will have a good life. They might be in the system for a long time. It's a lot more humane to end it now as a fetus. There's no pain to the fetus. Either give birth and give the baby a great life, or abort it and do right by your next baby. If you have this baby, you are in a way choosing between your next baby with a great partner their chance at a great life. This is really reassuring as someone who was once a scared 20-year-old who had to get an abortion. I do not regret it, but I do wish it didn't have to happen. I've had a few friends that were adoptees. I would say it's about half and half who has a good life and who had a bad one. And one of them had a really bad one. You did the best you could and you should be proud of yourself for getting through it. Regret the circumstances, not the decision. Because decisions aren't made in a vacuum. That's why pro-choice folks are so adamant about comprehensive sexual education and access to contraception. No one wants to have to abort an unplanned pregnancy, or a planned one for that matter. Things just happen, being human is hard, and pregnant people deserve the dignity to choose for themselves as they're the only one that knows how this pregnancy affects their life, regardless of what they choose to do about it. It took years of undoing anti-abortion propaganda, but now I look at it as nothing more than a medical procedure. They've brainwashed us our entire life to believe an abortion is equivalent to killing a baby. It's just objectively not true. It shouldn't have to be an emotional decision, and the only reason it is because we as a society have made it that way. I wish we could find our way to speaking of abortion more clinically. I hope you found a way to make peace with what I'm sure you know was the right choice. You shouldn't be made to feel bad for doing something that literally only affected you. Purple Heart. Thank you, Red Heart. I agree with you. I know that once you give birth, your hormones bond you to that baby instantly. I did not want to harm myself even more by putting energy and time and precious nutrients into something I did not intend to keep, and I saw it as protecting myself from further pain. The embryo I aborted was comparable to an acorn. It had the potential to grow into something, but it's still not the same as cutting down a tree. An acorn is not a tree, and an embryo is not a sentient human. There's no guarantee that the deadbeat dad will sign off on the adoption either. She cannot unilaterally give the baby up, he has to also agree and sign the documents. There's no way to know for sure what he'll do in 9 months when his family finds out about this. There is also no guarantee that the mother survives the pregnancy or that baby will be healthy. There's no easy route to take if you decide to give birth. Newborn infants don't go into the foster care system, except maybe in extreme circumstances where there are profound disabilities at play. There are year and even multi-year long wait lists for newborn babies. Private adoption is a totally different world than the foster system. This is a common misconception I see on the internet. Most adoptions nowadays are open too. 2 of my siblings are adopted, and though my parents looked ideal on the outside, they were not. At all. Open adoption can be extremely painful and confusing for all parties, also. It's not a fairy tale, for sure. And those kids are still set up for failure in catastrophic ways. Others in this thread. https://www.reddit.com/r/2hottakes/s/6orcsipple8w have explained this and shared their experience. It is really worth educating yourself on the harms of what you are suggesting. Embryo. During the first few weeks, it's merely an embryo, not even a fetus. But I agree with you on all points. I never understood why people offer adoption as an alternative to abortion. Abortion eliminates all the problems that come with adoption. Guilt that your child is out there somewhere, possibly being abused, wondering who their parents are and why they gave them up. And abortion solves the issue of not wanting to be a parent, without bringing an unwilling participant, a living human child, into the world. There are so many kids in the system waiting to be adopted. The fantasy that the child you've up will somehow find the perfect family and be happy forever is just that. If you want the kid, have it. Be prepared to be a single parent with no time for yourself for the next 18 years, having to answer questions about where dad is. If that doesn't sound appealing, abort it. You're early along and it won't be an invasive procedure. Even if you feel guilty, you'll at least know that you did what was best for you and that you can have another kid if you want to, when the time is right. Wit. Someone who loves you and wants to be in the kid's life. How would you feel putting this one up for adoption and then years down the line, having one and keeping it? Wouldn't that guilt be even worse? IDK. Just something to think about. Coming from the adoptee side of it, closed infant adoption in the 90s, adoption also increases the risk of substance abuse issues, suicide, and many adoptees struggle to form lasting friendships, relationships, etc. because of the abandonment trauma. And you're right, adoption doesn't offer anything but the roulette of hoping that the child ends up somewhere that they're not being abused. And adoptees are rarely believed when they speak out against being abused as kids and as adults because they should just be grateful that anyone even wanted them. If the adoption industry wasn't corrupt AF, if the laws surrounding adoption allowed all adoptees access to their information, specifically family medical history, if the laws didn't require legal documents be falsified, birth certificates are changed and adopters are put on the birth certificates like they gave birth to the kid, and instead offered adoption certificates or something, and if there was proper support, resources and protectio NS for adoptees, I'd feel differently. Kids of all ages will unfortunately always need external care options. People get pregnant and some can't access abortions and others are against them personally and shouldn't be forced into choosing termination or parenting a child they don't want to parent. The external care options here in the US, though, are just abysmal and unhealthy. Editing to add that they should also do far more checks on adoptive parents before adopting and do regular, but random, check-ins post-adoption. If you start the process before the baby is born, you can thoroughly vet the families. There's actually a massive shortage of newborns for adoptions. Walk into any church as a pregnant woman and they'll have a line of rich families waiting to pay all the medical expenses just for the chance to adopt your baby. Also, a large part of why there are a ton of kids in the foster system is that they can't really be permanently adopted. No one is going to adopt a kid whose parent is in jail for 5 years, knowing full well that parent is going to get out of jail, and can likely get custody of the child you've been raising for 5 years. It's all complicated, but pre-birth you have a ton of control, options over the adoption process. Exactly. Most people don't understand that the majority of children in the foster system aren't eligible for adoption. Parental rights haven't been terminated. They need a temporary home. It seems like people just assume newborn babies go into the system. They don't realize there's a huge private adoption industry and vetted families are ready to take the baby immediately after birth. She has clearly stated that the abortion would be a tremendous weight on her mentally. Not everyone holds the same views of what abortion is. I'm amazed how many people are encouraging abortion when she said, "I don't think I could live with myself if she had an abortion." When you are an independent single adult, money coming and going affects you and only you. When you have a child, that kid is also affected deeply by your financial state, both in physical and mental health, as well as developmental growth. Financial stability is an absolute must if you plan on raising this kid alone. Or adopt to a family that can provide that in addition to love and support. Whatever your decision, perhaps keep him in the dark about it. If you give your baby up for adoption, lie about who the father is, say you don't know. If you keep the baby, only let him find out when he's served with papers to complete a paternity test and pay child support. If you do in fact get an abortion, don't give him the satisfaction of confirming it for him. So, did you get the abortion? I guess you'll just have to find out. I'm sorry that you are having to. make this difficult decision and got dealt a crappy partner. I'm just going to say here, the judges in my area are very reluctant to approve adoptions without the father's consent. Children with unknown fathers can stay in the system years without the father's consent before the court approves an adoption. The state or adoption agency can pursue child support until the adoption is finalized, if they chose. In my line of work, I meet with women who have no paternal help every day. Crying because they can't afford daycare to get a job, so they are trapped. Ped in some circumstance and unable to acquire the finances to get themselves out. Most of them are lucky enough to have a parent or grandparent help them. Please line up a supportive circle that will be willing to be there for you until you are self-sufficient, if you decide to have the baby. Greater than money comes and goes. Oh no, that is not the take. This statement alone tells me you're not being honest with yourself. It gives, I'm not really thinking at all about the future, but what I want right now. Your future. The child's future. I know I sound so rude, harsh saying this, but please think with more than your heart on this. This is a whole-ass individual human being you're going to be responsible for supporting, not just financially but emotionally and mentally, possibly more than 18 years given this economy. Money comes and goes, is something I said when I didn't have rent to pay, was late on bills I did have and pissed away my cash on crap when I was young. Money comes and goes, is what landed my credit score in the tanker because my debt went to collections. It's time to think like an adult, op. Parenting is about more than just the money, yes. But are you ready to give up your own future to start an entirely new one with a kid? Are you emotionally and mentally ready to nurture that in another person, all by yourself? Your baby daddy is going to be completely absent at best, or more than likely make things even more difficult. Deleted my original comment because I have too many edits. It seems like you are minimizing the difficulty of being a single mother financially and ignoring the time and work commitment. You will be broke AF trying to provide for a child who didn't ask to be born poor. You won't have a life for 18 years that doesn't revolve around them. You won't be able to parent as well being single no matter how important it is to you. And your chances of finding a partner for this diminish significantly. It's an incredibly difficult, lonely struggle. I sincerely wish you luck. I'm so sorry you are going through this. I can only imagine the mental anguish you are feeling about the situation. Are you near any kind of support system, family, parents, or close friends? You may want to talk to them first before you are too far along and see what kind of help you could possibly get if you decide to keep the baby. You can always do an open adoption. Where are you staying in contact, send photos, etc., but let another family raise them. That way you don't have to be a stranger but you also can live your life. You do have options. Single parenthood can get more complicated than finances when he pushes for custody to lighten his child support, then takes out his emotional resentment on your child. People do open adoptions. Maybe that would be a better option for you. You could still be a part of the kid's life, but they would have the support of the adopting family, too. Abortions are very safe, cheap, and at only 4 to 6 weeks it will be more like a heavy period than giving birth. Yes, there will probably be some emotional consequences. But the emotional consequences of being unwanted your child will experience are worse. If you go through with the pregnancy, it will be purely because you want a baby now. Don't have an abortion if it will, as you say, ruin you. Your mental health is so much more important than anything else. Your body can rebound from a pregnancy if you choose to go the adoption route. There are many resources for parents. Look into churches and other charities if you choose the single-parent route. Think about 5 to 10 years from now. Do you want to think, I hope that child that I gave up is having a good life, or, I wonder what kind of person my aborted child would have been? Which future is harder to think about? That's your answer. In the meantime, take some time for self-care. Maybe take a yoga class or other typically female activity so you can be around a lot of women who could potentially be a resource or source of wisdom. Sending you lots of love and virtual hugs. Heart 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 heart. Greater than money comes and goes. No one financially stable has ever said this. You are gonna scrape by asterisk asterisk at best asterisk at worst you're in a shelter, on the street with a kid. Poverty is really challenging on a child. You're very young, with a lot of time to get yourself to a place in life that is more financially stable and possibly even have a solid partner, and then bring life into the world. It'll still be hard AF, but you'll be in a better place to provide a life for your child. I understand why you'd never think you'd choose abortion. And it is your choice alone. But I think you have to consider what life you'd be living and what life you'd be providing. And ask yourself if that is truly what is in the best interest of your future child. I don't have kids. I made that choice a long time ago when I realized I would likely pass on some very difficult diseases and I just couldn't bring myself to risk watching a kid I love struggle. I think you can ask yourself if it's at all possible that you're strong enough to make a hard decision, because I bet that you are. In fact, I know that you are, because all three options are hard decisions and you're going to make one of them and you're going to survive that decision. I say this not to advocate for an abortion you may not want, but to advocate against you choosing to keep the baby primarily out of fear that you won't be able to live with yourself if you abort. If you have the baby, you will be tied to that man for life. As will your child. If you're lucky, he'll just dip out and pay child support, but if he wants to, he can make your life hell using your kid. You're still young. There's a partner out there who won't be a cheating, abusive asshole, who will be just as happy to give you a baby. Do you want to miss out on a good thing because you were reluctant to move on from this really shitty one? I talked a friend into abortion once. She really needed to, but she felt guilty. 2 years later she messaged me and told me I literally saved her life, as her ex ended up convicted for CP and she already had a daughter from a previous relationship. She's now married to a wonderful partner who is a wonderful stepdad to her first child, and they're planning on having another once they get cleared for their first house purchase. I can't imagine how different and horrible it would have been had I not been the one telling her the same thing I am telling you. This isn't a baby right now. This is literally a cluster of cells with potential. Does that sound worth a lifetime tied to this guy, when instead you could be free and out in the world learning more about who you are, and finding a real partner? Money comes and goes? You need money to support a child. I was adopted along with my 2 brothers, as an infant. We all came from different states. We had great parents and a nice family. I think nowadays they even have open adoption where you can get updates on your child, etc. Great, but please know that you're an outlier, almost a statistical anomaly at this point. A lot of people have abortions and really don't think twice about it. I am not saying this will be you, or trying to downplay it, but the media in its many forms, on both sides, loves to play up the angle that people are traumatized, scarred for life, or experiencing long-term emotional turmoil from having an abortion. There are plenty of people who really do genuinely believe an unborn fetus is a clump of cells and an abortion of unwanted cell clump is really quite clinical, and therefore don't have many feelings about it once the hormones wear off. In the nicest way possible, it's very clear from your comments that this isn't about the child, it's about you. Saying things like, I already love it, could I live with myself, etc. makes it clear that this isn't about morals or right and wrong for you, it's about you chasing something you think will make you happier. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. We all deserve to chase the things we want in life. With that in mind, raising a child makes people less happy. We have the data and we know it's true, and it's true for 2-parent homes as well. So the question is, will you be okay being less happy? If you're mentally stable and have a good support network, then you might be able to afford to lose some of your mental wellness. If you struggle with those things now, having a baby could be a poor outcome for you and them. You have a bit of time. Ask your GP if you can get referred for a therapy session to help decide. Even if you can't get in time for the choice, you'll get in to help process and cope with your choice. This is the most helpful comment I've seen so far. Thank you for this advice. I know you said you weren't replying, but I really wanted you to see this. People like that are dangerous. Please be safe from him. He might try to harm you and your baby. I believe you can't make someone want to be a parent. My daughter's dad was like this, didn't want kids, so I walked away, choose to keep her, and never asked him for a thing. Just know if you do choose to have this child, it's 100% your choice, but also protect your child if this how he feels and you choose to keep it. Get him to sign away any parental rights that will protect you both. You get to keep your baby and he can't change his mind later and try and take it. Maybe you could talk to some other women who've had abortions. Chances are that every one of them will reflect on how happy they are that they didn't bring a child into this world that they weren't ready for, or that would have reminded them every day of a bad decision. I'm in no position to give you any personal advice here, but very few women ever regret terminating a child they weren't ready for. I think if you're feeling guilty now about the idea you should keep your baby, a lifetime of guilt will eat away at you every day. Children are a challenge but a blessing nonetheless. Good luck, heart. Money does not come and go. Money goes always, but there's a good chance it can be just cut off. Say you get fired for needing too much time off or something because you don't have a great support network. Then what? Money isn't a guarantee at all in this world. Remember, it's about you and your body, but it's also about your capability to provide a life for this child. If being a single mother means that you will struggle, then this is not only unfair to you, it's unfair to the kid. In my mind, it's always better to wait when you are ready to raise a kid, instead of bringing one in the world purely because you want them to live, when they won't even be able to live well. In part, it's a selfish decision. But it's one that is yours to make, because nobody knows your life. Just remember, all that is at stake. Your conscience may feel clearer for a while with your decision not to get an abortion, and you may be more at ease. Is that worth potentially giving a child a worse life than you could at a later stage? Unfortunately, the best decision is not always the easiest or clearest one. Another way to think about those consequences is that one is just consequences for you. That the others bring another person totally dependent on you into it to bear them as well. When you are a parent, money does not come and go. It's gone before you have it. Inflation alone has absolutely killed our grocery bills, and my kids are still toddlers. It's insane the amounts they eat. There is nothing in the house for us to eat. It's all for them. We just eat what's left over. Hi, hand waving. Maybe sharing my experience will help. I had an abortion at 27. I was making $17 an hour trying to get into my career field. Because I had an abortion, I was able to live off of next to nothing and work so many hours. I had the time to put in application after application after application and getting some experience. I then got a career starting job. I'm 33 now, went from 17 hour to $135K per year in 6 years, and I don't think I would ever have been able to do that as a single mother. I bought my first house last year by myself and have cherry blossoms in my backyard. I think I made the right decision for me and my future family. We'll all be much happier and stable because of the decision I made. I feel I did the right thing. I'll tell you, my wife, in a somewhat similar situation to you, was pressured into getting an abortion from another man, before I knew her, and she regrets it terribly. I hope things work out for you, sending all my positive vibes. I feel like another thing a lot of people don't consider is that pregnancy can physically mess people up pretty bad sometimes. Like, people can lose their ability to have biological children as a result of carrying a pregnancy to term. I know this sounds harsh, and while uncommon with modern medicine, you may not be able to have kids when you plan to have them in the future, when your circumstances are better, as a result of carrying this pregnancy to term, and the risk of this happening with abortion is much lower. You probably won't change your mind, and that's okay, just FYI. I don't think I would be able to have an abortion either. I'm sorry you're in this shitty situation. If I were in your position, I would be ready to walk away from him and come to terms that I will be a single mother. Don't expect anything out of him. Things will work out. The amount of times I thought my life was over, but you will make it through this. It might not be easy, but the love with your child would be worth it. Don't worry about what these other people are saying when the kid is older. All the money and struggles won't matter. My personal opinion would be that it's better than wondering what life could have been like. I hope you have a good support system, Heart. You should have that baby, and if you need financial support from him, then you can force financial support, child support. I won't get an abortion. The choice is yours to make. He shouldn't have gotten you pregnant if he wasn't ready for a kid. Like I said, have the baby and file for child support. Is the life you could give this child as good as the life you could give a child born later into a stable situation? If you have this child, and in 10 or 15 years settle down with a nice guy and have more kids, your eldest will have to watch their siblings enjoy everything that was missing from their childhood: a present father, a happy and relaxed mother, financial stability, a lack of stress and anxiety over bills. How do you think your eldest will feel watching your new kids have secure, happy childhood they never got? I'm a male, full disclosure, but around 12 years ago a girl I was dating ended up getting an abortion after she got pregnant with our child. She did this because she had a drug addiction I didn't know about, and didn't feel like it made any sense at the time. Her and I broke up months later. A year after that I met my wife, and we've been married 10 years. It was an extremely hard decision for her, and it was extremely hard for me to deal with for a long while, but my life is completely different. And completely better than it would have been. Everyone is different, so take from this story what you will. Why ruin your body and finances over some guy that doesn't want to be with you anymore? Not to mention lowering your sexual market value as choosing to be a single mother to a guy that you caught cheating so carelessly. What matters most in life? Money? Pain? Or the most fulfilling relationship a human being can have? I had an abortion 30 years ago, and I can honestly say that it was the biggest mistake and regret of my life. I know there are some women that don't care and see it as just a form of birth control. I'm just not one of them. I'm not going to tell you what to do either way. I will, however, tell you to think very carefully and very seriously about this, because if you do have an abortion, this is one choice that you cannot take back after it's done. You will have to live with it the rest of your life. I was in a very similar situation when I got pregnant. My boyfriend left to take his mom back to Jamaica to visit family before I even knew about the pregnancy. I had to wait until he got back to the States to tell him, and that was over the phone because he was across the country. I was scared. I wasn't ready for kids. I didn't want to be a single mom. I actually made the appointment to get an abortion, but I ended up not going. I knew adoption wasn't an option for me, either. My Gur's father and I talked a few times, maybe 6, from when he got back to the States until the last time I heard from him, 3 months after she was born. Haven't heard from him since then, and that was Christmas Day 2004. I couldn't call him, either, because he said he went back to Jamaica for his mother's funeral. He told me she passed away in a car accident on the freeway after they returned to NY. I did not have a contact number for him at that point. Anyway, it was hard, but for me, it was worth it. I look at her now and can't imagine her not being here. I did have some help when she was small, and I started dating my now husband when she was 6 months old. I thank God for sending her father into my life, and for giving me my angel. I have never spoken an ill word about him, either. I have nothing but appreciation for him. As you go through this, having a good support system really makes a difference. With the social media we have access to now, you could probably find a group local to you comprised of single mothers. That may help you as you embark on this journey, too. Congratulations on your baby, and I hope to see pregnancy updates. Man, props to you on following your morals and opting to keep the baby. Raising a kid is difficult financially, especially as a single person. But I think many people exaggerate the costs. They're wanting to maintain the same lifestyle they had prior to having the child. It's nice that you're willing to make some sacrifices, and lucky that you're in a position that allows you not to sacrifice too much. I'm really sorry to hear about your BF. What a poss. I hope you don't take him back and low. Okay, forward to updates on the pregnancy. I understand you would feel guilty about abortion, but like others have said, you have to think hard about the type of life you want for yourself and that child, and if you're able to provide what you both need. You can live knowing you had an abortion. You'll probably be very relieved, actually. Don't do it. Delete it. Money doesn't come. An adult should know that. You have to go out and earn it. Do you have a solid plan for earning enough to keep yourself and a baby together? If your conscience is convicting you against having an abortion, then I believe you are better off listening to it. Don't ignore the fact that money will be a problem, even if you can get financial support. Being a single mom is also not just a financial fact. It is very much emotionally taxing and difficult. I believe in you, you'll figure it out. Has anyone mentioned that he can sign away his parental rights now, and you can move ahead without him? And yes, money does come and go. That is a healthy mindset. I don't know if you believe in people who are able to connect with the spirit world. I follow a woman and she has stated that souls don't attach to a baby in the womb until after 4 months. I also know lots of women that didn't suffer or have breakdowns from having an abortion. Sending you my best. This is certainly a moral and ethical dilemma. Are you okay being the only person impacted by your decision, or are you okay with a child also being impacted by any decision you make? The reality is that adoption is harder than abortion. If you're not ready to care for a child by yourself, I'd go for the abortion. That being said, I know multiple single mothers your age and they love it, albeit it's not easy by any means, but they wouldn't trade it for the world. It all boils down to whether or not you're ready to care for a child on your own. I hope I was of some help. The money comes and goes. This drastically changes when you have a kid. I promise there are about 1,000 expenses you can't even fathom exist, on top of the ones you do know exist. Girl, you are young. Do not tie yourself to this man for the rest of your life. You have plenty of time to have a kid later on if that's what you want. I'm also going to advocate for not forcing someone who does not want to be a parent, to be a parent. You will be tying someone to you for life who will actively resent you and quite possibly the kid. Most women never regret having an abortion. It's something like 98% of women who have had abortions do not regret them and say that it was the fight decision. Maybe go check out the Regretful Parents sub. It may help you truly think about this decision. Spoken like someone who never struggled over money before. As others have said in a much nicer tone, you're being incredibly naive if you think the finances of having a child will just work themselves out. FYI, it is not a baby, yet it's just a seed that was planted and can be pulled before it becomes anything. Personally, the question I would be asking is the life I would be bringing this child into a good one I would want? The child gets no choice in whether or not they are born, only you do. What will the quality of life be for this child if they are born? For what it's worth, statistically, women do not regret abortions, with a few rare exceptions, IDK if that helps. You have to think about what's best for baby, not you. If you have guilt later, you own that. You made a child with a man who is not ready, and it doesn't sound like you are either. You can abort, find a lovely couple, or be a single mom. Be careful when you choose what's best for the baby. Just know there are giant lists full of people that would do anything to have a child. Those people you can usually feel good about loving and cherishing your child if you do decide the adoption route. You would be providing a family's miracle child. But also totally understand it would still weigh heavy on you. Sending prayers for you for guidance. Folded hands, medium light skin tone. I am not against abortion, but like you didn't feel like I could do it myself. So when I got pregnant at 17, I gave my daughter up for adoption. It is an open adoption and the parents are the best humans in the whole world. She is an adult now, in her early 20s, and though the first year was hard, everything after was affirming. She has grown into an amazing human that I love just as much as my other children. After her, I had a second child, whose dad left us when she was a baby because it was hard, and our house had just burned down. He didn't reach out to her until she was an adult, and she has no desire to meet him now. She was an only child until she was 7, when I had my son. He had autism and ADHD, and his father died when he was 11. Being a single parent is the hardest thing I have ever done in my whole life. I love my children very much, but if I am being honest, if I could go back and do it all over again, I wouldn't. They have mental health issues related to not growing up with a dad, and being both mom and dad all the time is exhausting and means you have no choice but to be the bad guy, with no one to back you up. I wish you luck, and hope you find peace in whatever decision you make. It's an incredibly hard decision. I've had 2 abortions in the past and they were the hardest decision to make, but I couldn't bring the children into the world knowing their father hated their very existence before they even had a heartbeat. It took me years to get away from his abusive shitheadery. Since then I graduated uni, emigrated, have a career, a husband, and 3 beautiful kids. I wouldn't have any of that if I'd kept those babies, and while it hurt at the time, the pain did fade. No Matt. What choice you make, it will be hard. You need to make the decision for you and no one else. No one can or should tell you what to do. The question is can you live the life you would be providing a child currently? Just because you put a child up for adoption does not mean they get adopted. If you have a child as a single parent, it does not mean you can provide and care for a child. Especially if you are not ready. There are many things that should be considered for each decision you make. What you should be asking yourself is, can you live with bringing a child into the world knowing it's going to have a harder life because you're a single mother, plus whatever trauma the absent father bestows upon the kid? You need to think about what's best for the kid, not what's best for you. In all honesty, I think you made your choice on abortion long before this. Talk with your family, find out their thoughts and if they would support you being a single parent. If you do decide to keep the baby, get a DNA test once they are born to prove he is the dad so he can't say you're lying. Give him the option then to either just pay child support, give up rights, or be an active parent in the child's life. Also then reach out to his family about being in the kid's life no matter which he chooses. It's more than just financial hardship. My pregnancy and birth were relatively easy, and I still don't know what I would have done if my mom hadn't basically come and stayed for 2 months. I don't really remember my daughter as a newborn because of the sheer exhaustion. My best friend is still in physical therapy for stuff that happened during her pregnancy, birth, and she had to change jobs entirely because she physically couldn't do the same job she had done for the last 15 years. Beyond that, my partner and I make good money and can easily afford everything our kid needs. I still nearly got fired because I was sick so often when we started daycare. I was on the wait list at that daycare for 3 months. I'm still on wait lists at other daycares that I would prefer to take our child to, and it's been years. Babies and toddlers are entirely dependent on you for years. My kiddo still doesn't let me or my husband go to the bathroom alone without a major meltdown. It's also more than kiddos. Current physical needs. A lot of the single parents I know work tons of overtime to afford extracurriculars and AP classes for kids and still can't put much aside to help with college. They're absolutely torn up because they want to give their kids a good start, but they have to choose whether they see them or give them an advantage. Kids will break you. I love mine beyond words, but she's broken my heart so many times and she's still a toddler. You have a tougher road because the person who you make the baby is going to try and make your life worse, and also sounds like he might try to end you. The simple answer is, it's different for everyone. When I was 24, I was working full-time and going to S-Hook full-time. If my then partner and I had wound up pregnant, I would have aborted ASAP, because my priorities were saving for a house, building my career, and finishing my undergrad degree. I did all of those things to build a life I love, and so I could support myself. I'm much older now and my life is awesome. A baby would have hindered the life I wanted and saw for myself. What do you see for yourself? Do you want children? Do you want them now, or were you planning for later, or perhaps not at all? Do you trust your ex to take care of a child, if you have to co-parent? Can you support yourself and a baby? Do you have a support system in place who can help you through single motherhood? Do any of those questions resonate, or perhaps there are more things in play? Only you can figure that out. Single mom of a 15-year-old here. My son's father ran off when my kid was about 6 weeks old. I know you don't feel like the financial part is a huge part of the decision-making here, but let me tell you, it needs to be. The US has a shitty support system. I had a severe duct infection and ended up not being able to breastfeed. Then my kid ended up having a dairy intolerance, so I had to buy soy-based formula, which was expensive as fuck. I applied for WIC because I was barely scraping by before the expensive formula. I was denied. I made too many money, which is insane. I was eating ramen, and most weeks I had less than $5 in my account after I paid for everything. I ended up evicted because I couldn't pay rent and everything else anymore. Thankfully, I had family that took us in. Then I finally start getting back on my feet. I get raises and promotions at work. Things are looking up, and then my son starts having health issues. I almost lost my job because I was having to leave work because he was sick so much. I was living in the doctor's office and hospitals. FMLA did keep my job, but my paychecks were dwindling. My attendance meant I couldn't hold my position and I was demoted. Finally, after 2 surgeries, my son is healthy again. I get promotions at work and things are looking up again. Well, then my son starts to display symptoms of a behavioral issue. Now I'm back at doctor's offices. I'm missing work again. He's being kicked out of daycare and getting suspended from school. We did get a diagnosis and therapy. Things were back to looking up again, and they did for a long time. I was still having issues with the school, but not like before. And then I was laid off. By the way, unemployment sucks. It didn't cover a fraction of my bills. I was out of a steady job for a year. Now, I've been with my current job for 5 years. I make a fraction of what I did before I was laid off, but things are better again. I didn't tell you this to try and change your mind. I just want you to know it's hard. You no longer just worry about yourself. I love my kid and don't regret him for a second, but it takes a toll on you being a single parent. Make sure you have a good solid support system in place. If you do keep your baby, know he or she will be your greatest joy, but also a huge challenge. It's not as bad as most PPL think. Your relationship is certainly over, but I'm not even concerned about your finances or whatever. The real issue is that homicide is the #1 cause of death in pregnant women. The risk is something like 35% higher than non-pregnant women. The language your ex used raises giant red flags to me. This can't happen. He sounds desperate to not be a parent, and as you are already aware, you cannot force him to be a parent, but you also can't prevent him from murdering you, potentially harming your baby as well. Jumping in here with my 2 cents. My family has had a beautiful experience with open adoption. Society has come a long way in that regard. It was extremely respectful of the bio mom's wishes. You get financial assistance while you are pregnant, you get to choose who adopts your baby. You even have 30 days to change your mind after the baby is born. Here in California anyways. In the end, the choice is always yours and there is no perfect solution. Best wishes to you. Respectfully, as a woman that had an abortion at 23, it's not really that hard. If you do some research, 1/4 women will have an abortion in their lifetime. Over 90% of women surveyed say they do not regret their decision. Is it an unpleasant experience? Yeah, but I would 10 billion% do it again, and I was pregnant by a partner I was with for 3 years and we had a combined income of overly $100K a year. I know a great deal of young moms that do regret having their kids so young. I know one T. Hat has resorted to stealing diapers. If you can't actually fully support a child, the selfless choice is to terminate so you don't subject two lives to unnecessary struggle. Adoption is sure an option, but can you handle having to take time off work when you're far along, or the average $10,000 cost to give birth in the U.S.? There are going to be a lot of decisions in your life that you will look at and either be glad that you made the decision or regret it. But if you are making the best choice that you can, the older you will understand. An abortion only you have to live with. All you have to do is deal with your own feelings about making a decision that very likely improves the situation for your future self. The other two situations bring a baby into a not-so-great situation. You will probably be an excellent CNGLE mother. But you may struggle financially. You will struggle with your time and energy. And not having more structure will impact the kid. Giving the child for adoption may yield a positive result. Or maybe it puts them in a really bad situation. I don't know what the rate is for kids that go unadopted. But I'm sure for the kids that aren't, it's not the best life. I'm sorry that you have to go through this, BC. It's not your fault. You wanted something to happen that didn't work out. That's not your fault at all. But whatever decision you make, that is on you. So either make a wise decision that you will forgive yourself for later, or be prepared to bust your ass making it work. I do wish you the best of luck. There is no shame in adoption, but I would never take an infant's life. I don't ever think killing a baby in the womb should be something worth considering. I have a baby girl right now of almost 8 months old, and I would not have never even considered taking her life because she is a human even in the womb. Seeing her every day brings joy to my life and motivates me to be better for her regardless of my financial situation, which isn't great. Life can be more difficult with a child, but it is worth it. I am not sure about this, but if you choose to adopt out, you might be able to keep contact if done properly and you develop a relationship with whoever is adopting. I recommend reaching out to any local churches to support you with either adoption or if you want to raise the child yourself. I was married, had a baby, and ended up a single parent when my daughter was 6 months old. She's now an adult and I have been a single parent the entire time. Was it easy? Hell no. Do I regret having her? Also, hell no. She is amazing, and any and all struggles, tears, fears, etc. pale in comparison to the love and joy I have had raising her. Relinquishment trauma. Adoptee trauma. Baby trafficking is bad parenting. You'll regret it for a lifetime. Just hit the reset button and take out all the trash and have a fresh start with someone new. My mother was a single mother. I respect your decision, but I just want to share that I saw her suffer a lot. I understand how hard of a decision this will be for you and wish you well. Genetics plays a big factor too. My oldest is just like his father. Raising him was hard. If he's a jerk, your kid just might be too. It also seriously restricts the future dating pool. Lots of men won't consider a relationship with a single mom. If they do, there are still issues with how the new man will treat the kid. If you keep it, be prepared to stay single. Maybe you won't, but you need to be sure you'd be okay without another man in your life for 18 years. You can live with having an abortee. You can live with an adoption. You can live being a broke single mom. Abortion is the easiest choice to live with. Adoption forces you to carry to birth, so it's more emotional to give it for adoption. Single parenthood is a very long, hard road. I get it. I faced the same situation. I couldn't get an abortion and I couldn't give my daughter up for adoption. I just couldn't. I've been a single mom with dad almost completely out of the picture for 9 years now. I don't regret it. As a biologist, if it helps at all, I promise you that 4 to 6 weeks is nothing. It's goop. No central nervous system, no brain, no pain. Hundreds of thousands of women have pregnancies end at that stage and mistake it for a heavy period. I'm not trying to dissuade you from bringing the pregnancy to term, if you genuinely feel you want to be a mother at this time. But please don't feel like you need to be a hero over this. You are entitled to a clean break and a fresh start away from this situation. Yes, you can and will live with any decision. You will live either having had an abortion, and move on from all this and maybe one day meet someone who you want to have a family with. Or you can live as a single mom and the struggle that involves. Or you can live with having a baby and letting a person who can't have their own have a baby they desperately want. You can and will live, but what kind of life is up to you. I suggest you go to Planned Parenthood or a women's clinic. I know Planned Parenthood can discuss with you about what options you have available. I will put heavy emphasis on this. Abortion isn't the only option. There's support groups out there for single mothers, and as you mentioned, you can put your baby up for adoption. When your head is a bit more clear, I definitely recommend that you go do some research. Look into government aid as well, because it's likely to become difficult to provide for yourself and your child if he decides to be a coward and vanish. And definitely figure out what legal rights he has if you keep the baby. This could potentially pose a problem. If you're going to keep the baby, you need to move to where you want to be for the next 18 years. Once the baby is born, he can stop you from relocating. Not to mention that in many places, single mothers are looked down on and treated unkindly, or so are the children of single mothers. Your child may be bullied at school for a situation that isn't their fault, and they may resent you for this, even though it's their bio father's fault entirely for abandoning both of you. It's unfair, but that's life. That's society, sexism. There are so many factors to consider here, not just financial. IDK why you couldn't live with having an abortion. The baby is not even close to being alive at your stage. You're asking the questions and you're the one with the answers. Do a coin flip and whatever it lands on, see it as true and see how it makes you feel. That will tell you a lot about where you really are. Believe in yourself whatever you decide. How is it a hard decision to make? It's fucking easy. Abort the child and move on with your life. It's stupid to tie yourself to a man for 21 years based off religious beliefs. The child was a mistake, learn from it and move on. Being a single mother isn't cute and basically guarantees that you'll struggle to date. Don't be stupid, having that child will ruin your chance from getting out of that relationship unscathed. Pretty dumb to not be using protection when things have clearly been on the rocks for a while now. Don't be even more stupid and bring another child into this world with a shit father who wants nothing to do with it. You can always have another child with someone who truly loves and values you. But you can't have a child with this person, who sucks, and you will be tied to him for at least the next 2 decades. Personally, doesn't seem worth it. And the kid would have to suffer an absentee, at best, father, which really hurts and messes kids up. As an adopted baby, I'm grateful for the family I have, and I don't blame my biological mother at all for doing what she felt was best for me. Most of the people I know who are also adopted feel the same way. In my adoption agreement, my mom was required to send a letter once a year to my biological mom with an update on how we were doing until I was 18. She wasn't required to respond. I think if you decide to go that route, you can rest assured that you did something great for someone who wanted a baby, and that baby would be lucky to have a family that wanted them enough to go through the strenuous adoption process. It's not just emotional or financial. You need to read a book on what happens during pregnancy and childbirth and after, like yesterday. Are you ready to shit and pee yourself for the rest of your life? Ready for you to have major bone loss and lose hair? Ready for when they cut you down there or you tear and need stitches? Pain during sex forever, etc. On top of that, most men will never date a single mother no matter how attractive, and also the men that will are more likely to be child predators. Your body is tricking you right now into bonding with a clump of dividing cells. It's hormones. You have probably already had a natural abortion before without knowing it. Get all your knowledge together. You are about to experience the lowest of lows alone. Money comes and goes? That is the dumbest thing a soon-to-be parent could possibly say. You not having money means your kid will go without. A child growing up in poverty is exposed to more environmental pollutants that increase developmental delays and disease. When you come up short for childcare money, you put a child in danger, unlicensed daycare, perv neighbor, alcoholic family member. Sincerely. You are so self-involved that you don't even understand what this would mean. You don't like abortions, but forcing a kid to grow up uncared for just because you want to tie this man to you forever is sick. When you're still single at the kid's graduation, just want you to think of me while they are explaining how they are going no contact because you proceeded with your selfish behavior. Becoming a mom won't change you. It isn't a magic button. You will still be this, except now you'll be letting down a child instead of just ruining your own life. Money comes and goes? What happens when they rack up a hospital bill? Doesn't matter, we both know you can't even afford diapers. I believe you can do this. One good parent is enough. A tough decision, but being a single mom is beyond difficult. What is wrong with abortion though? It'd be worse to let the cells grow into a person who wasn't truly wanted. Have a baby because you want one, not because you were led to believe abortion is morally wrong. One is objectively worse than the other. If it's religion holding you back, look up ancient beliefs on when life begins, and it's definitely not at 6 weeks. Please keep the baby. You will regret not having your baby. I just had my daughter a year ago and she has changed my life in every way imaginable. When I was 21, I had an abortion and I regret it. If I wouldn't have been so selfish, I would have a beautiful baby. Well, now too. And I wouldn't have gone through drug addiction. You may not abort the baby, but he's clearly decided that he has. He won't be around. Consider that the foster system is overwhelmed by kids that never get adopted. There should be nothing emotional about a big induced period. There is so much more than financial toll. There's physical, emotional, time, add potentially medical consequences of a child, especially without a partner. If you have a good support system to watch the baby for free to take the place of a partner, then that is more favorable to keeping it. Otherwise, it will be very rough, and you seem to underestimate the weight of a child, working, and managing a household can have. Do you have the money to give your kid the life they deserve? That's what you should be asking. Does your kid deserve to be homeless? Because that's where you could end up if you treat this lightly. So sorry you're going through this. I definitely agree with your hesitancy regarding abortion. Some of the commenters here are downplaying the sheer permanence of such a decision. I encourage you to reach out to organizations such as Let Them Live, https://letthemlive.org/, and charities or adoption organizations depending on what route you choose. Also remember, being a single mom also limits your ability with future partners. Dated a single mom in my mid-20s, had a really bad experience and told myself I couldn't do it again. To my knowledge, she's still single and we are both in our middle 30s now. My friends also tried to play stepdad and it also didn't work out. Just my 2 cents, but before I met her, my wife was in a horribly abusive relationship. Beaten, sexually violated, isolated, the whole shit stick. After finally getting the support network to kick her abuser to the curb, 2 weeks later she found out she was pregnant. She considered abortion, obviously, and knew that the sperm donor would never take on any sort of parental role, nor would he have been fit to. However, my wife decided to keep the pregnancy alive, and had a baby boy. She was a single mother for 15 months before I met her. I never thought I could love an adopted child, and I thought I could never date a woman with an existing child. But lo and behold, that child accompanied us to our first date as she wasn't able to secure a babysitter. I fell in love with him at the same time as I fell in love with her. She didn't want a dad for her child when she was looking for a relationship, but I couldn't help but assume that role as our relationship progressed. Her child is now ally my son, and he is 7 years old now. If you ask him, I am his dad, and although my wife and I have a 4-year-old daughter together, I can say that I love him as much as I love our daughter. My point in all this is, this child may not be the end to your personal life. Who knows, that child may end up your wingman to find your person. The choice is yours and yours alone, but keep an open mind as to how your life post-child could play out. Can you live with your child living with your abuser if he seeks parental rights once child support payments take so much of his paycheck or you die unexpectedly? Can you live with your child possibly being abused by his father on the rare occasions he sees him? Murder is the #1 cause of death of pregnant women. Deep down, do you think your partner won't want to get rid of the child enough to kill you himself? Sometimes abortion is the only safe thing for both the mother and the unborn fetus, baby. The thing is, money won't come if you have the kid. Single mom probably won't get a cent in child support. Yeah, you're gonna be financially fucked. You're naive if you think it's something that comes and goes. Your whole financial future will be absolutely wrecked by it since you're not already stable enough to have a kid. Raising a child who eventually figures out their other parent doesn't want anything to with them is very hard. And sometimes they have family that want to half-ass a relationship and then abandon them too. The emotional turmoil on the kid is not good. Here's something that I will say about adoption, is that it's often glamorized but unfortunately it's often a horrible situation. The cost of it are extreme, the likelihood that the people that are doing it are religious extremists are low, and once they eventually get put into foster care too, things become even worse. As a single parent, you'll never be able to provide the full family experience that your child needs. It doesn't matter how much you love them. And ultimately if you love them too much, that's actually even worse. There is no easy answer, but it's important to realize that no matter which choice you make is lifelong. Do you want to give your possible child less because you weren't ready for them? Or do you want to be ready when you choose to have them? Look, unless you're religious, it comes down to this. Of all the babies you could have, is this the baby you want to have? Here's a way to analyze the opportunity cost and risk, reward. Assuming your fertility is typical and that you want to have all your kids before 34, then you have about 144 other opportunities to have a baby. How many kids do you want? Let's say 2.4 kids. So that's 60 opportunities per child. So this pregnancy needs to be weighed up against the other 59 other potential boys who would arrive at a different time with a different father, different income, career trajectory, etc. To be clear, I'd you keep this pregnancy, that means that you lose 59 of your 144 baby opportunities. That is the opportunity cost. The today baby means no baby when you're 28 or 32, if that makes sense. It may even mean no more babies at all. So is this baby better than the 59 other babies? What you need to do now is balance the value of a baby now versus a baby you might have in the next 10 years. It's probably your only opportunity to have a baby with this man. Is that good or bad? Is he especially good breeding stock? Handsome? Smart? Kind? You'd have the baby young, so that's good in terms of health risk. How does that balance against other risks, e.g. income, housing stability, etc.? What are the other costs of baby now? Does it impact your happiness? Your career satisfaction? The type of partner you might attract, etc. Look, I know this seems cynical, but we live in a society where pregnant people are treated as disposable incubators for the seed of the patriarchy. The fact is that every single one of your 144 potential babies would be loved by you and is special. All those ovum are sitting inside your womb right now. You get to decide when or if it's the right time to nurture and grow one of them into a human. And that is okay. I'm just going to put this out here as an FYI. https://www.plannedparenthood.org/FOR288AB2AD-37988-4E3D-8A9F-2132003F0F65/191011-the-facts-on-mifepristone-D01.pdf. At 6 weeks your baby is the size of a pea, which may or may not make a difference to you. I wish you luck either way, as it is not an easy decision. Adoption is never a bad thing. Can always do an open adoption as well. It's recognizing that you did something that had consequences that you couldn't handle. You are giving the child the best chance possible for their lives. Giving your baby up for adoption or becoming a stressed-out, angry single mom is infinitely more emotionally damaging than aborting a fetus at 5/6 of a week. I've seen late periods occur later than that, so you can really just think of it as a late period, which is essentially what it is after you take the pill. It sounds like you have no idea what you are getting yourself into. For the sake of the unborn child that is not asking to be here, you should think about this more maturely than money comes and goes. Do you feel ready to care and love this child without his support? He's clearly indicating he doesn't want to be involved. Yes, you can force financial support. But the big question is, how do you feel about doing the parenting without him? Will your friends and family help? I've been a single dad for 6 years now, and I've been trying to force financial support the entire time, and, in Florida at least, there's no help. If the other parent doesn't pay, the government's is literally just like, well, what do you want us to do? That's true. Sometimes a parent takes no responsibility. OP needs to consider that reality. Some people just work off the books to avoid wages being garnished. I'm an employer. Most deadbeats have already quit by the time the letter informing me of garnishment has arrived. They have it down to an art. You also need to decide if he does help on any level. Is he someone you want in your life for at least 18 years? She can have him sign away his parental rights and tell him to kick rocks. Doesn't work that way. Sometimes it does. It doesn't. In almost every state, it has to be extreme extenuating circumstances, or if another person is willing and able to adopt them. Almost being the key word, in which case I said sometimes. I correct my statement. There is no state that will allow you to voluntarily relinquish parental rights as a means of avoiding child support. You may relinquish, but you're still financially responsible until the child is an adult, or is adopted. Even after adoption, any back-owed support is also still due. If it were actually possible to do this voluntarily to avoid support, half the fathers in the country would be running to be doing it. In many states, you can't sign over your rights without a replacement that is willing to take on the responsibility for the child. Even in the states where you're allowed to terminate your rights, it often isn't done because terminating rights is independent from the legal responsibility of child support. Most people won't sign away their rights when it doesn't get them out of payments. Just don't put his name on the birth certificate.